red lights. How is everybody doing out there? Welcome to the Wednesday Night Hump. You are on the Upstairs to the Right music channel, listening to Mike Williams, and I want to thank you so much for taking the time to do so. Um, Let me see, make my adjustments here as we wait for more people to join into the chat. I should say welcome. So I also say welcome to the chat. Yeah, groovy. All right, we're all set. How's everybody? Now, I released a video today on my regular channel, contents, another not a live stream, that covered the 1978 Greco SE 750 or 700. Sorry, if you have the time to take a look at that, I really appreciate it if you did. Ben in the house. Good evening. My tongue's a little tied tonight, Ben. I better drink something. Actually, hope everybody's doing well. Enjoying what's left of the summer. Yeah, they're enjoying it a lot here in Amsterdam. It's like every other shop is closed. You get used to it, kind of, sort of. But still, wow, they really take their vacancy really seriously here. So I put that video out. And it's interesting, while I was making that video, I noticed that I have kind of given it, I've been using this Jim Dunlap pick. It's a nylon pick for many years. As a matter of fact, I can't think of time, maybe even going back to high school, I was using this exact same pick. I haven't changed picks in decades. Benny Larson in the house, Michael Watson, and Tommy Mack. Hey guys, happy Wednesday to you guys. Welcome. But when I was recording it, one of the things about recording those videos for my regular content is I hate playing because you have to sit there, set up the camera, and then you got to think of something to play. And lately, what I've been doing, and I've found works, is I do set up the camera, and I just pick. I don't use a pick anymore very much. And I've got to the point where I think that I have a pretty good technique with pick going for me now. And I can switch up styles and do a lot of things, kind of like the Lindsey Buckingham kind of thing. I always learned Lindsey Buckingham's ability to be able to play without a pick. And I actually think I'm at that point where I can play electric without a pick. And I noticed that in that recording is the stuff that I put as the performance part of that video. That I wasn't using a pick, and I prefer it. And so I got like a lifetime supply of these Jim Dunlaps sitting around. That's not good. But yeah, I prefer, there's just something about playing without a pick. I've gotten used to this, I can be more articulate, I think, interestingly enough. So I did notice that. That was something that filming that video that I picked up on. If you haven't watched it again, it's my review of the 1978 Greco SE 700. I do appreciate it if you take a look at it and hit the like button on that as well as tonight. Don't forget, guys, to hit the like button tonight as you watch. I do appreciate that very much. We have a topic tonight. Actually, we've got a couple of topics. I don't know if we're actually going to get through this in an hour. So we're going to give it a shot and try to see. I got a lot to talk about. Actually, since I'm not doing jack right now, seriously, there's nothing I can do. As I before mentioned, everybody's on holiday. I have to learn how to adjust to a European holiday schedule. For about 2 or 3 weeks in August, you are not going to do jack. So I had time to write a script, a thorough script tonight. And then I picked up on a couple of things that I'll discuss afterwards that I thought was pretty hilarious. So stick around for that. Thank you guys so much, everybody who's tuned in to tonight's live stream. I know you could be spending your time doing something else, but spending your time with me is greatly appreciated. Do believe that much to be true. Now, I titled tonight's discussion, The Great Guitar Market Crash. And the reason I titled that is clickbait. Actually, I have somewhere to go with this. Uh, the great guitar market crash is a topic that popped into my mind as I was thinking of topics to discuss with you tonight, and writing the script for tonight's live stream. Um, I remember. I mean, I watch a lot of financial channels. And I watch and I read Zero Hedge, as you guys know. If you don't, I suggest you do. A lot of good tidbits in there. And also, I hear things from shops and people around me. And I started to get that 2008, 2009 feeling again. Maddie, two hats in the house. Welcome, sir. How you doing? So glad you could make it. Talking about the great guitar market crash of 2008. And tonight I want to tie that one in 2008, 2009. I want to tie that into today and the possibilities of something like that occurring, what you can do to mitigate any losses if you're so affected. And again, just another, not positive tonight, but an informative discussion tonight. Like I said, I'm going to keep the rag. I haven't ragged on anybody in a while. I got some, like I said, I've got it. I don't want to spoil it. I've got a great one that I want to get into the second part of tonight's live stream. But tonight, I really do want to discuss this because I think that this is something that a lot of cats really should know. This is information, if you're interested in the guitar market, that you should have tucked away. Now, not all of you are as old as I am. You may have been in junior high school, or in diapers, as far as I know, in 2008, 2009. Or maybe you're like me, you were around at that time. So, just a little trip down memory road right now. I thought we would start out with just to kind of get you informed on what happened in the guitar market 2008 and 2009. Now, we all remember that year. It was the start of the Great Recession. The housing market crashed, the stock market tanked, and the global economy was in great turmoil. But what many people don't realize is that this economic downturn had a huge impact on the vintage car market as well. Um, yeah. Now, at the peak of the vintage guitar market, these instruments were considered to be kind of some of the sexiest investments around, to be honest, because everybody, there was money. You know, if you remember the lead up, especially 2005, 2006, 2007, that's when you really saw the vintage guitar just, just, just explode. I mean, it was ridiculous for, but you could still get a 60s or 70s Fender Strat for about the price that you're paying now for a new Les Paul. Um, and we're going to talk about that. Put a bookmark in that statement. Uh, and as a result, everybody was pouring money into real estate and mostly real estate. But some people were also pouring money into vintage instruments as well. The guys, again, who sit at our table. Um, you had guitars from the 1950s and 60s fetching astronomical prices. Think six figures for a single instrument. Uh, Uncle Carlton in the house. How you doing? Uncle Carlton, I know you called me a couple of days ago. I want to let you know I'm sorry that I have not gotten back to you. I was actually planning on giving you a call tonight after the live stream, so it's a good thing you showed up. Seriously, was honestly that was my intention, but just as a quirk of fate, you showed up. How you doing? I'll give you a call tonight, by the way. Glad that you're here. Um, Now, it wasn't just rock stars and wealthy collectors buying these vintage instruments. They were seen as a hedge against economic enemy, a tangible asset that could be held on to while other markets foundered, like gold, for example. But if you know anything about the gold market, you know that in recessions, gold tends to take a dip before it takes a climb. This time around, it's a little bit different, but if the real S hits the fan, then it will act accordingly. And so did vintage instruments. The only difference is that gold had a rebound during that period. Vintage instruments did not. It took a great deal longer. But then 2000 happened, the economy crashed, And by 2009, the prices of these top dollar vintage guitars had dropped by 30%. That's a massive hit, guys, by the way. I did some calculations on an $1,800 guitar. A 30% hit would be somewhere in the neighborhood of about $430. So, I'm sorry, 30% hit would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $430 on an 1,800 guitar. That's a huge hit. A huge hit. And so, when you're in a niche market like vintage guitars, and that kind of massive drop happens, then you're really in a bad bind because the amount of people that circulated those guitars within that sphere, again, is very small. And if they all got puckered up and took one up the Rui, then you got to know that it's just, you're not going to be any different. It's not going to move. And that's exactly what happened. It's stagnant. It stagnated the market. Now, let's break down why this happened. In times of economic uncertainty, people tend to liquidate luxury assets first. Vintage guitars, as much as we love them, fall into that category. When you're facing foreclosure, job loss, or financial insecurity, that 1959 Les Paul doesn't seem as essential as paying the mortgage. Now, I use that as an extreme example of the nine. However, you know, that extended its way to a 70s, you know, Telecaster or Strat or Jaguar. It was all around. Carlton says, I have a new great grandson. Family, hey, man. I guess that makes him somehow related to me, too. That's good news. Congrats. Yeah, you got a big family, Uncle Carlton. I got to tell you, you made up for me. I got no kids. Collectors and investors began offloading their guitars to raise cash, flooding the market with high-end instruments. This oversupply, coupled with reduced demand because of the recession, caused prices to plummet. Suddenly, guitars that were once selling for $250,000 were now going for $150,000 or less. And that is an absolutely stunning hit on these guitars. I said percent, but it got into the 40-50% again on some of these instruments. It's bad. It was bloodbath, absolute bloodbath. Now, again, we've talked about economic uncertainty. We've talked about recession, inflation. I think is a part of this as well. Yeah, everybody give Uncle Carlton a congratulations. Um, and I guess indirectly in a way, me too. Well, not indirectly, his family. Um, this wasn't a temporary drop either, as I mentioned. It took years for the market to recover. And I would say that if it wasn't for COVID, yet another factor in this that's happening now that makes it slightly different than the 2008 2009 period, um, is that we didn't have that COVID cash being influxed into the market, everybody's market. Uh, then I do believe that the vintage guitar market would not be as robust as it is now in terms of its price. It was not on track to be where it's at. That 400% kick to Fender of all that COVID money also extends out to vintage instruments as well, and the effect it had on everybody. And of course, again, with the crashing of the secondhand market, again, you can see how we're setting ourselves up for another repeat of this. Again, it was not a temporary dip. It took years for the market to recover. Some guitars never regained their pre-cash value, even despite the COVID blip, while others took a decade or more to get back on track. Now, well, actually, more part is actually true. That statement I typed, I should have just said, while others took more than a decade to get on track. But People are. I will spoil the lead here, guys, and take a moment, take a sip of my freshly pressed watermelon juice. When it gets super hot here, this stuff is actually really good, and I know a good grocer down the street. That's one thing about here in Singapore, that there is no shortage of good fresh fruit, which is an irony. And most things were imported into Singapore, by the way, a little FY. People are buying those now, and I wouldn't touch them. Just to spoil the lead, I wouldn't touch high-end vintage instruments. I think the underpriced. I think again with the Grecos and the Yamahas from the '70s that I've been getting into, I believe, frankly, that those are underpriced in the vintage market for the value that they represent, and you can't lose money there. But if you start getting into the vintage Fenders and Gibsons and to that nature, Gretches, boy howdy, I think you're setting yourself up for a massive hit, especially the prices some of those are fetching right now. I saw the most tore up Gibson double neck at a local dealer that he's selling. Nick the Hell, not in great, I would call it player's grade, but he's asking, more than player's grade prices, price for it. And I think anybody who would invest in that right now would take a loss because of things that are setting up. Fast forwarding to 2024, here we are again facing economic challenges. But this time the factors are a little bit different. We've got a lot on our plate this time. There's been a global pandemic, inflation is through the roof, there's ongoing geopolitical instability. All these things didn't exist in 2008 and 2009. That was purely based on a real estate crash. This next one is based on a multitude of factors, and a lot of them are a result again of the COVID. But oh yeah, I'm not supposed to say that on YouTube, but whatever. Um, there's ongoing supply chain issues that are affecting everything from groceries to guitars. See, I don't talk about it as much as I used to. I used to really heavily get into the supply chain. Right now, the supply chains from Japan to Europe are fantastic. The costs are down. The delivery times are super fast. As a matter of fact, it takes longer on this end, as usual, for the package to get processed than it does on the Japanese end. And so that's great. However, in some cases where things are going to the States or going to South America, then you've got issues, or Canada, that area of the world, because of supply chain problems. And a lot of that is brought about by geopolitical instability. So, how is this affecting the guitar market? Well, we're starting to see certain patterns to what happened in 2008. Again, patterns, guys. I want you to start seeing patterns, recognizing them. You live long enough, you see enough of them, you start saying, hey, that looks like, yeah, and you can act accordingly. The prices of high end vintage guitars haven't crashed yet, but there's definitely a cooling off. Collectors are more cautious, and we're seeing fewer record breaking sales at auctions. It's like the market is holding its breath. Now, I brought up the auctions because a lot of rockers are starting to sell off their things. They're aging out and they want to start cashing out, which I can't blame them in that regard, but they're not fetching the kind of prices that they used to at auctions. Auction stuff is money laundering, by the way, in case you guys didn't know that. That's the big part of the art world. But if you don't believe me, watch the coffee shop scene in Training Day when all the cops are sitting around. They kind of break that down a little bit. But, you know, people are getting more cautious out there. And so at those auctions, they're just not fetching those kind of prices. Now, of course, they're always going to hold a certain amount of value, and it really depends upon what value you got into it at. Is going to determine, how that works out for you. But again, that is a reality. One big difference, though, is the broader economic environment. As I said, in 2008, the crash was sudden and severe. 2024, it feels more like a slow motion train wreck. I don't know how you guys feel. Every time I mean, I have an Albert Hain downstairs below me, almost below me, and I won't go shopping there anymore because their prices, just were noticeably jacked up. Or stuff that I can get at the market for a lot cheaper. I buy most of my produce and things, juice and stuff like that from open air markets now. I don't go to supermarkets. Their overhead is certainly a lot cheaper than a Hain store, so therefore their prices reflect that. But in the online retailers in the guitar sphere are starting to, I'm hearing whispers from friends of mine that they're starting to get offers from distributors for great rebates on guitars, just as long as they'll take them in. So, inflation being a cause of that, slowing down of buying things, people not going into the stores, not people stores that are left, and people not buying online, as much. Again, as it's like the market is holding its breath. Now, issues piling on top of each other with no end in sight, that's creating this uncertainty, which is never good for high end collectibles. So again, we went through 2008 time period. Gave you a little bit of background, what that was like. Yeah, I remember that you could get deals on everything. That was a time, that's when I believe I got my Les Paul, which, as you guys know, was a Epiphone that now resides with my brother during that period of time. I recall because they were god awful cheap. It was brand new, you 2010ish or so, I guess it was. So what shall we try to keep an eye on going forward? Now, whether you're a collector or not, maybe you're just thinking about investing in vintage guitars, or maybe you're looking at the vintage guitars that I review on my channel and thinking, how does this fall within that? Maybe this information will be of help for everybody else. I'm sure it'll be entertaining. Economic indicators, keep an eye on inflation rates, interest rates, and stock market performance. This is something you should be doing. It's surprising to me. I know that we get up in the morning, brush our teeth, dress, we get in the car, we go to work, do our thing, we come home, got the kids, we deal with that, and then we try to do whatever we do before we go to bed. Even when you're young and you don't have the wife and kids equation, it's worse because you're working more. And keeping your eye on things that are going on is a difficult task. However, there is a certain level of civic duty, I believe, that every individual has to know what's going on. That way, nothing comes as a surprise to you, so therefore you're not a burden to your neighbor. Is that a little harsh? But that's how I feel. Keep an eye on inflation rates, interest rates, and stock market performance. They are all connected to how much disposable income people have for luxury items like vintage guitars. You don't even have to be in the vintage guitar market to look at these indicators and know that it's probably affecting that market. Probably you don't want to get into that. Certainly, again, like I said, at that level, there are again levels of vintage guitars, like I said, Japanese ones from the 70s, that I think are what you should invest in. You can get them cheap now because there is going to be sunshine at the end of this storm, and when that hits, all ships will rise. So again, it depends upon price point you get into. Again, I'll stress that again, the price point. I always think that, where am I getting into this? And where can I get into something that has the potential not just to hold its value, but maybe come up a little bit. But we got to go through this storm. Supply chain issues. If supply chain problems persist, we might see fewer new guitars entering the market, which can either increase demand for vintage guitars or cause prices to stagnate as people hold on to their money. I put both of those in there, but the truth is, what we're seeing right now is the stagnant. What we're seeing in the secondhand market is definitely stagnation. People are holding on to their money. Again, like I said, where you got mortgage, car payments, car insurance, if you have those kind of things, all that stuff starts to add up. And you're going to plan, I hope, wisely where you spend your money. And guitars are not going to be high on that list. Wars and geopolitical instabilities always have a ripple effect on markets. I don't talk about it because this is a pleasant entertainment channel. However, the specter of war looms heavily on us. We are in a cycle and until 2025. So maybe we'll make it through this cycle. But we are in a war cycle right now and things could escalate. We could see a repeat of the 2008 scenario where people start liquidating assets to secure cash as a result of this geopolitical instability. Pay attention to the auction results and sales from major dealers. They pop up all the time. If you read Guitar World, and boy, do I have an article from Guitar World for you guys later to read. If you read those publications, they're online. They always talk about such and such guitar went up for auction, or as a matter of fact, they have an article today about Peter Green. His Dual Sonic is going up for auction. How much you guys want to bet it's not going to reach? It'll get a good price, a right price. But how much you want to bet that it is not going to reach a record price? Again, keep your eye on the auction market and sales from major dealers. If we start seeing more guitars going unsold, prices dropping, that could be a sign that a bigger correction is on the way. Again, I'm saying these things in this tense, but the reality is these are the things that we're actually seeing. So the reality is there is a correction on its way, and where do you want to fall on that side of that correction? You know, sticking to guitars is really it's really important for you to know these kind of things to fall on the right side of that, not on the bad side of it. Remember, vintage guitars are incredible pieces of history. They're still investments. Just like any other market, there are ups and downs. While it's important to be informed and cautious, I can't stress that. Let me read that again. And it's important to be informed and cautious. Again, uh, this is not for everybody. This conversation tonight is just to inform you guys a little bit about what's going on out there in the market. I watch it and live and breathe it every day, obviously, because of one of the gigs that I do, mainly the guitar sales and purchases. But I do talk to guys and I do hear these things, and I have eyes to see. I can see them, what's going on in the brick and mortar stores that I visit, what kind of foot traffic they're getting, what kind of sales I see. The upstairs part of one store I know of where they keep all their guitars is usually empty. I can go up there and read a book, have a coffee, take a nap. It's air conditioning. Why not? Um, and that tells me things too. Um, when is a good time to buy? Well, not now. It's a tough one. If you find a guitar, of course, that you love at a fair price and not just in it for the investment, it could be a great time to buy. But if you're looking purely from an investment standpoint, it might be wise to wait and see how the market evolves over the next few months. Um, Now, I am a big preacher of the vintage Japanese guitars again. I think that they are undervalued. I really do. From everything that I know about the guitar market and looking forward a little bit, uh, getting into crystal ball territory a little bit, but informed, again, keeping my eye on the things that I discussed just now with you. I think that certainly you can get into a vintage Japanese guitar and you will not lose a dime. Even if the market tank, those things they pretty much will hold their value at that price. Um, you may see a slight dip or maybe a little bit harder to sell. But on the other side of that storm, as I said, I see where you could see again this. It's always one of these things, you know. That's basically it's kind of like a wave, and the pattern of this market, but it's a wave upwards in terms of price. And I think that it would be a solid investment to get Jets. Not because I sell them, you know, obviously, but I buy them. I put my money where my mouth is. I truly do believe that. And I'm certainly trying to buy as many of the quality ones that I can as possible. Try to hold on to a certain amount of them as well. Put some of them away for holding, because I do believe that they will appreciate. Betty, two hats. So market down, prices down, inventory up. Play what you got. Yeah, basically that sums it up a little. But then the markets, again, like I said, aren't down. But if you smell smoke, then generally there's a fire somewhere ahead of you. Is what this is about, and Maddie, actually. Um, could the market crash even further? Absolutely. Absolutely. If we see more economic turmoil, a deeper recession, or a prolonged conflict, the market could definitely take another hit. But on the flip side, again, like I said, when things stabilize, there's the possibility of a tremendous rebound. Mike, he's in the house. Hey, Mike, how you doing, sir? I agree with Mike that Japan-made guitars are better value when compared with vintage and vintage, especially 50s and 60s models. Yeah, and a lot of those Japanese models, I remind you, were modeled after 50s and 60s. So you're getting a 1970 Greco like the Super Sounds, which is based off a 60s design. Was that, yeah, late 60s? The big headstock came in, early 70s, and it's made of this. It's a copy. It's made exactly the same way. They were made with three-piece bodies. The Japanese ones are three-piece bodies. The pickups, the XL pickups are fantastic. They kick butt over anything you're going to buy on the boutique market now. And again, that's a tremendous value in itself, because you don't have to be dicking around swapping pickups trying to get a certain sound, when you can buy a vintage guitar like those Grecos with those XL in it, and you're good to go. Hell, if you listen to the video that I put out on the SE70s, those U2000 pickups sound awesome. I wouldn't touch them. It's a great Alnico 5 to it. Wouldn't touch Very Articulate too. Yeah, and because it's a vintage instrument, you'd be loath anyway. It's a natural. Buying a vintage guitar is kind of a natural, like a cold water bad shower on our desire to swap things out. You know, you'd be loath to do it. You would do it. So that's a positive as well. When do we get those 90 prices back? When we invent a time machine and go back to the 90s. So yeah, I think there's potential for rebound, but where? You have to identify. As I told you before, not all vintage instruments that were priced high ever came back to those high prices. There's a lot of people even today that are still underwater on purchases made, if they still have them, from the 2005, 6, and 7 period, or early 2008. Ooh, that was the worst. You got it then, and a lot of guys are in the red or breaking even. Some of the vintage instruments, as I said, have gone above of what they were before. But the Japanese models, I've been watching, I've been looking, I've been going back, and I've been seeing that they stay stable, man. Something to think about. The vintage guitar market, like the market, is subject to the forces of the economy. Big takeaway tonight. We've seen it crash before, and we're seeing signs that it could happen again. Could happen again. That's Michael code for you ain't seen nothing yet. But history also shows us that recovery is possible. I want to keep a positive note here. And that these instruments can still hold incredible value, both financially and, at the end of the day, the sentimentality of it as well. I always want to stress that. Whether you're a collector, a musician, or just someone who's guitars, it's important to stay informed and make decisions based on both passion and being pragmatic. Passion, pragmatic. You really do have to keep that balance going. I have a passion for that. I see guitars that I want to buy it, but I know that there's no money in it for me. And to be pragmatic about it, very pragmatic about it. in a lot of cases. I have to let stuff go because it doesn't fit within my business budget. And but I do try to identify the ones at the level that I can, and maybe I'll gift myself something nice and pay you know a full price for it. But again, that would be because of sentimentality that we're putting pragmatism aside. So, just some thoughts, guys. Just my thoughts on the matter tonight. Um, am I out of juice? I sure am. Boy, that was good. Went and bought a watermelon and just threw it in the blender, seedless, so I could do that. Just slice it up, threw it in the blender, and I've been drinking that all day because we've been in a heat wave here. We had the hottest August since they've been keeping records here. As you can see, I'm thoroughly tanned. I'm not even, if you can tell, I'm a little bit prettier than usual because of the sun, and I've been gardening a lot. And this watermelon juice is just really fantastic stuff. Again, like I said, one of the advantages of living here is just the variety of things that you can get. I really like it here in the Netherlands. I've lived in a lot of countries, more than most should. This place, I'm glad that I'm here. All right. So that little segue done. Let's talk about something that I saw. Speaking of Guitar World magazine, um, that cracked me up. Absolutely, just cracked me the hell up because you know I talked about chasing tone in the last segment in regards to the great guitar market crash. Um, tone chasing takes its many forms. Let's see if I got one here. Yeah, the most obvious one that people pick is swapping ups. This is my dry Z copies that I've had for a minute here that I love. They here until I find the right guitar for them. They will stay there. But as a tone chaser, swapping pickups these days is something that is generally what we do. Uh, we will swap bridges as well. So we'll take the bridge that the guitar came out with, especially in the case of Squires, and we'll swap the trim system, for example, with a Fender trim like this one to improve it. We'll swap. God, like I said, I'm a parts guy here, guys. I got nothing but parts. We'll swap tuners in order to improve the intonation of the guitars. We will do all. We'll swap from a plastic nut to a bone nut to a synthetic nut. We'll do all these kind of crazy things chasing tone. Now we all know that string gauge, so the strings, got those here as well. I've got some DR XLs here. These start at 11. Don't usually play 11. I bought a set of them just in case I feel like screwing around. But we know that a heavy set like 11s will certainly sound different than a set of 8 or 9s. There's no difference in terms of, I believe, uh, some of the before mentioned things that I said we could swap out. But I do certainly know that tension, the gauge of the strings does affect tone. Um, that's one thing I am sure of. Pickups, you know, I'm still of the belief if you make adjustments to your pickup, if you take your pickup and you just make some height adjustments to the string, and again maybe some adjustments if you have screwable pieces on it. A lot of those things, like a staggering pattern, a lot of those things can improve the pickups that you already have. But strings definitely have a direct impact on your tone. But it's generally accepted that it's string gauge that affects that. Well, not according to Seymour Duncan. Seymour Duncan wants to bring you closer to the sound of electric guitar's heyday. Of course he does, because he's an old fart. And This constant reaching back. This is the shit talking part of tonight's live stream, by the way. This constant reaching back. I just lost like people. That's all right. Um, I want to finish tonight with this article on Seymour Duncan saying that he wants to take you back to the sound of electric guitar heyday by his new guitar strings. They could be the key to unlocking true vintage tone. The key to unlocking true vintage tone. Now, I like to read these articles to you and break them down. I like to consider myself to be a pretty fair writer. I've written professionally for publications in my lifetime. So when I read a statement like, and they could be the key to unlocking true vintage tone, I would say vintage tone is a subjective thing, you know. And also, may I add that if you want to unlock vintage tone, just buy one of those overpriced vintage instruments that I was just talking about. Problem solved. Why? Well, I got a Squire here, but I want it to sound like a 57 Strat. So let me pick up these Seymour Duncan strings, and I'm there. Basically, that's what's being said with that statement. Pickup Specialist has expanded its antiquity range. Now, I owned a first or second run set of the Seymour Duncan antiquity pickups. I kicked myself to this day about selling the guitar with those in them and not putting in the original pickups. I kept the Gibsons and I gave away the Seymour Duncan. Stupid me, but I love those pickups. If you find an old set of Seymour Duncan antiquity pickups, which are Alnico 4 pickups, I do believe. They're either Alnico 4 or Alnico 3, one of the two. But again, much like these dry Z's here, copies. Fantastic tone. Is it a vintage tone? What is a vintage tone? Are you talking about a vintage tone from a hard day's night? Are you talking about a vintage tone from the song remains the same? What are we talking about here? And everything else in between. Matty Two Hats, dude. True vintage tone. Everyone makes a PAF copy. I found one under a rock the other day. yeah, yeah, with a leopard. Seymour Duncan has expanded its electric guitar pickup range, but not with a new set of humbuckers or single coils. No, instead, they have turned their attention to electric guitar strings in that market, unveiling a new six-string set that serves as the firm's first ever set of strings. In keeping with the wider Antiquity family, which is committed to capturing the true vintage tones of the most infamous guitars ever produced. What's an infamous guitar? What, did it hold up a bank sometime? Did it like knock old ladies over the head for their purses? What is this thing? What is this? Again, I read these articles and when I see them and I come across one as egregious as this one, I've got to read it to you guys to just let you know that it's word salad. It's crap. This new release rolls back the years with a more retro design that looks to deliver the desired string sounds and feels of yesterday's. I don't know what the string sounds and feels of yesterday. What am I? I guess I would have to buy an old Fender strings or something. Yeah, Epstein strings. Yeah, dig that, Matty. Two hats. Dig that. Specifically, it opts for pure nickel winds rather than a nickel alloy plated design. Well, in the UK, you can order from them any gauge, that you want, and you can decide how you want it wound or unwound as well. This is nothing new. As a matter of fact, I would put those True Tone strings over these any day of the week because guess what? I can get custom. I get custom sets. I start at a 9.5. If I haven't mentioned that before. Specifically, it asks for nickel lines. Okay, well, okay. nickel wound. Okay. Bringing something new to the market there, aren't you, Seymour? As well as apparently offering a longer string life. Oh, really? I know some guys that don't wash their hands here. I doubt that seriously. And a more consistent tone. What's a consistent tone? I've never had an inconsistent tone out of guitar strings. I've had a lot of inconsistent tones come out of me. Pure nickel also provides a richer, warmer tone. There we go again. Here we go again. Here we go again. Richer and warmer. Descriptive word salad. What does that mean? What does richer mean? What does a richer sound mean? I'll wait. Nobody? Really? Okay. Well, me either. A warmer tone as opposed to a cold tone. Again, when if you look at the opposites of these words, they make the words that they're using even more silly. It also provides a poorer, colder tone. They became the backbone of classic blues and rock and roll. Those guys didn't have two dimes to rub together. James Jamerson, the famous Motown bass player, never changed his bass strings. He said the gunk is in the funk. The funk is in the gunk. You guys got my meaning. So, is that the richer, warmer tone we're talking about? James Jamerson's, finger of funk and whatever he had for dinner that night and where else his fingers had been. But that's the backbone of classic blues and rock and roll, guys. Don't miss out. They had two hats. Those players were colder and poorer for They had the money to buy strings all the time. So if they go into the studio to record, I doubt seriously in the early days that a lot of those restringing for the session. I'm just being honest here. Let's cut through the bullshit of this corporate vision of how things were and really deal with the reality. Because if we understand the reality, then we can see that, it was really catch, catch, can. Now, our antiquity in this stuff doesn't work because it's nonsense. Now, our antiquity, and this is such a hard word to say, antiquity, vintage modern strings bring you even closer to the sound of electric guitars of heyday. Okay, that must be a typo. The company states. These vintage modern strings are the perfect start to your signal chain in the quest to unlocking your favorite classic guitar sound. And then, of course, if that's not working, buy our pickups. And then you'll be there for shizzle. In terms of gauges, they started a light gauge. Their light gauge is 10. See, even already that doesn't work because I work at a 9.5. So this is, this is talking to me. This release also sets a potential precedent for future Seymour Duncan drops. We don't believe this move into the string market is the one and done kind of thing for them, and we expect the firm to bolster its string reserves in the future. Okay. They might start releasing strings that are specific, of course, to its pickup collection. Well, if you've got those antiquities, then you need to buy an antiquity, matching string set to really bring out the full warmth and rich tones of those pickups, and not cheap, by the way. About $400, by the way, for a set of those. I think I may be understating that price. So they have it, guys, boys and girls. Probably one of the biggest loads of malarkey I've seen in a while. Without any question. I just see articles about these things, and it just absolutely such BS. Matty Two Head says absolutely. It just astounds me. So it tickles me. It amuses me. So I thought I would share with you guys to wrap up tonight's live stream. Yeah, strings, dude. I mean, let's think about that pathway. You're going again, like I said, your pickups in your speaker really, honestly, because you can have a a great guitar and a shitty amp, and it's not going to sound as good as a shitty guitar and a good amp. So I would say out of everything in your signal chain, one of the most important things you would really do yourself a favor investing in if you play through amps is invest in your speaker. Then I would backward track, say, well, what kind of guitar cables are you using? Using cheap cable that you got free with the guitar in the starter pack? Or are you actually investing some money in some decent cable? Or are you going wireless? And if you're going wireless, how good is your wireless system? Then we're back further up to the pickups. We got a long way to go before we even start talking strings. The point of this, in my mind, strings play a part, but again, and it does play a role in the tone. However, Stevie Ray Vaughan started out on 13s or something like that, something crazy like that, and he taking even his fingers couldn't take it after a while, so he moved down to like 12s or 11s or something like that. His tone didn't change that greatly. So I started out by saying strings do play a role in the tone, but to the level that these guys are professing it to be. Yeah, if I just think of it that way, Stevie Ray Vaughan changed strings and his tone really didn't change. Again, unless they cut his fingers off, that wasn't going to be a factor. It really had a lot to do with, his and the strings were just a small part of that. Important part, but is not as life changing, tone changing as old Seymour Duncan would have you believe. This is the biggest load of malarkey that I've read in a long time, guys. And this is going on top of those Gibson pickups that were in the box. That was outrageous. This right here is just plain stupid. It really is. This is just stupid. And I like to consider myself to be the voice of the every man. Not every man, but a lot of men. Everybody has their opinion, of course. Might not be the same as mine, and I respect that. But in general, I think that most people would view this as being kind of a BS kind of thing. I think so. I hope so. All right, guys, we somehow made it through an hour tonight with the live stream. I will remind you again that I have a video that I uploaded today discussing the Greco SC700. If you haven't watched that video, please go over there and watch it. Everybody watching right now, all of you guys watching, I'd like to see you go over there. Yeah, $1,000 pickups in a vintage box. I got shoes that are more than that box was. But anyway, actually, that's a sad statement, but it's true. Seymour Duncan, the new lifestyle brand, new visitor to the chat here. Hey, welcome, guy. Thank you for showing up. Going to watch it now. Hey, I appreciate you doing that, Tommy. Yes, style brand continues, and they pump this stuff out with this kind of drivel, this word salad, and just don't fall for it, guys. Don't even participate. Don't even enter into that contract. Don't observe it. Just ignore it. All right, well, my lights are dying. I guess that's my producers telling me that it's time to wrap this up. So, with that said, I want to thank you guys for showing tonight to the live stream. I am trying to get to 5,000 subscribers. If you're new here, hit that subscription button. Join the community here. Great group of guys, really supportive, really super supportive. Always here for me. I will always be here for you. And thank you guys so much. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye bye.